Seems fair to me.
Fair decision.
Yes, it did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Sounds like any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Great to have you with us. And thanks to our friends at the Gatesworth, who not only make this program possible week in and week out, but hosted us for a fun discussion on Tuesday night, which was led by the media veteran herself, Wendy Wiese. Bill McClellan's with us tonight, of course, from the Post-Dispatch, one of our founders on Donnybrook. Another founder, Mr. Ray Hartmann, in his usual seat to the far left of me. And also Mr. Alvin Reid from the St. Louis American and STLmag.com. And that was a fun time at the Gatesworth the other night. Alvin?
Absolutely, absolutely. What a charming group of people and hosts and hostesses, I guess. But yeah, we had a great time.
And a beautiful environment for a raucous discussion.
Absolutely.
Want to ask you about a tax that's going to be on the ballot. As we all know, it's the zoo tax in St. Louis County that'll increase the sales tax 1/8 of a cent forever in perpetuity. And today we see from local public radio that it's kind of being described as a way for people to camp or go on a safari in North County so that people can see the giraffes up close, much like they might do if they were on an African safari or something like that, as opposed to the typical experience. Is that making you even more interested in the zoo tax?
Well, yes, I think, it's being created for breeding and endangered species. I believe we will start with that. Not we, like I work for the zoo, but I live in St. Louis County. But hey, if you're going to do something, I appreciate the fact that if you can camp, okay, and it is kind of like a safari element. Once again, the zoo leading the way. They need the money to do it. I get that, but I just don't have a problem with it. It's one of the things that works.
Now,
it's one of the things that works well. So let's let them work well.
The St. Louis Zoo does not need the money, period. It's a $100 million operation that does not need the money. Everybody loves the zoo. We all have to genuflect. It's great. We love the zoo. No question it's a fine zoo. Here's the problem with this. A, it's unfair to the rest, particularly the people of the city of St. Louis, because Jeffrey Bonner has suddenly adopted the suggestion I made 10 years ago, which is that the people who get in free are the ones who support it. So in this case, that would be St. Louis County taxpayers. This is the gift that keeps on giving. It's going to be something like $20 million a year out of general revenues for St. Louis County. It's not even officially earmarked for it, so they could end up doing whatever they want with it. But think about it. Anything St. Louis County does, it's $20 million that's being diverted to an institution, however wonderful, that doesn't need
I just want to point out.
It does need the money to have this breeding facility, and the idea of taking a little boat down there and having giraffes come. It all sounds good to me, and North County can use this, and I'm with Alvin.
Now,
the zoo is world class. Let's support the zoo, I say.
Even though we understand that the safari land, we don't have a start date on construction. I mean, right? We all understand that. Because first we go to breeding.
It's not even in the proposal, but go ahead.
Right. First we go to breeding land.
The point I make is that you can't say that this is $20 million that's coming out of general fund, because this is a tax that's being created for that. Now, if you say,
if we're going to raise tax.
No. Yeah, exactly. So now if you say pass another tax, but you cannot say that this is $20 million coming out of general fund.
Hang on. Point of order here. I just want to jump in here. Let me jump in here real briefly, and that is, we're throwing around this $20 million. When you add the property tax we're already paying in the county to the $20 million extra dollars from the sales tax, it'll be about $40 million a year to the zoo from the county. That's a lot of money.
The taxpayers. So there's the 20 include. The 20 is all the ZMD. The ZMD is 20 for the zoo, 20 for the art museum. Alvin's got a good point.
It'll be $40 million when you combine the property tax and the sales tax.
The 20 is from the city.
Right, and you get what you pay for.
No, that's not true.
We want to keep a world-class zoo. We say yes.
Well, what Charlie seems to be saying is we are sort of being led down the garden path, and we are voting in favor of something that, as you said, isn't even in the proposal.
Well, Charlie,
Well, no, it's the proposal is not specific about the breeding or the cheetahs or other matters.
Or
but-
the kayaking or the giraffes.
And it's all up to the board, which changes all the time, and there's no accountability because the board's not really voted on by the people out there.
Speaking of that, there's two big problems we haven't talked about. One is the zoo is part of something called the Zoo Museum District, which was created to keep to have them unified and supported. Among the institutions who will, of course, dare not complain that this is very unfair to is the Art Museum, the History Museum, the Science Center, and the Garden, because they were supposed to be a unit. The zoo's breaking away.
No, they're not breaking
well, yes,
away.
they are. But let me finish
we're
that.
building a
we'll
new
be quick, though,
facility.
right?
Okay,
'Cause we
all right,
wanna
we'll be quick.
dis-
So
dispute
it's
this.
unfair to them. And as I said, the zoo is operating, I know how misty-eyed everybody is, we're operating under a 1970 tourism model of not
Well,
charging
okay.
tourists.
Just real quick,
and that
real
money
quick.
is all they
Gotta keep
need to
moving.
The
cover.
Botanical Garden or the Science Center or whoever else in the ZMD wanted to create something that was not where it is now, a separate entity, and they asked the people to vote for it. It's up to the people to decide whether they want to do it or not.
Right, I don't think this is unfair to the other institutions. They're still getting the same amount of money they were getting before, and it's a wonderful thing, the Zoo Museum District. But if the zoo wants to start something else and ask the voters to vote on it, and I'm a county voter, and I'm voting yes.
It's
for
a
the zoo.
regressive. Alvin
Well,
has a good point. It is
the big
new
concern
money,
I have-
but it's regressive
Yeah.
and business killing
It is.
on top of it.
You know, a sales tax is already 11% in parts of the county, 10% in many areas, and it does affect the poor the most. If we weren't giving tax breaks to the major corporations, I would say fine, but we're just shifting the tax burden from the well-to-do to the little
Okay,
guy.
well, let's stop giving money to the corporations.
Yeah.
and let's
Amen,
not take
amen.
it- Let's not beat the zoo
Right,
up.
they're beat the zoo
I'm not
up.
beating up
Man,
the zoo. I'm saying they
endangered
don't need
species.
to-
Let's not save the endangered species. Let's give money.
Well, that's a county priority,
Right.
Alvin Reid, saving the species in St. Louis County.
Somebody's
I'm not
gotta do
beating
it.
up.
All right.
You,
By the
you
way,
wouldn't
Charlie,
like to be going down the river and having a giraffe
Bill.
look over at you? Charlie?
Again, there's
I
no
love it.
guarantee that
Okay,
that's
let's
gonna
move
happen.
on. Great
beating
point.
up the zoo.
Okay, we got a big show because there's a lot of measures on the ballot. Wendy, I want to ask you about the gasoline tax, which it sounds good for roads and bridges, but then when you look at the ballot language, it talks about giving the money to the highway patrol, and then it talks about making sure that if I get a gold medal in the Olympics or in the Special Olympics, there won't be any tax consequences. And I would prefer a measure that just point blank said, let's raise the gasoline tax for roads and bridges in the state of Missouri.
But don't you think that's because the voters have rejected it for the last two times that they voted on a gasoline tax? So they're trying, it's like a cupcake. They're covering it with all sorts of frosting and sprinkles. And they're saying, this is about safety, this is about the highway patrol. They're going to put the highway patrol money into roads and bridges. So you've lost everybody at that point as a result of this gas tax. Nothing, I don't think anything pits the city mice against the country mice quite like gas tax, because it has to do with lettered highways, out in the rural areas, as opposed to urban thoroughfares. And the poison pill is another thing that is kind of, really off-putting. The poison pill that is part of this, that would allow the legislature to get into general revenue to basically go around the voters. And it seems to me that they would allow their pet projects to go ahead without the voters. And it's too much smoke and mirrors for my taste.
But if you believe that, then you should be against the zoo, because it has
No, Ray.
Let
The
it has
highway
no
tax
rules.
and the zoo are completely
No, they're
different.
not. They're actually a similar principle, if I may. One is that we are
If
working.
you think the legislature and the zoo are the same.
No, I'll tell you. Well, I think that the principle that the money can be used any which way they want to use it is the same. And secondly, the more important point is, as with the case in the zoo and its emission policy, we are operating like it's 1970 in the
We're not
state
going
of Missouri.
back to the zoo.
Yeah,
We're beyond
we'd
that
like
topic.
a free zoo,
Let me-
Ray.
let me-
That's
No,
not the
hey,
highway tax.
point of
My
order.
point
Let's
is
talk
this.
about the
Yeah,
highway
highway
measure.
tax.
Let's talk about the highway tax. We have the second lowest one in the country. Okay, that means all the millions of truckers and everybody that's passing through when they buy their gasoline here. We have the second
Right.
lowest one in the country.
I agree.
And we think that's some badge of honor. Meanwhile,
No.
we have the least support for public education, the least support
You're
for social
way-
Ray,
services.
could you stay on the highway? Do you think
I
this
am.
is a good thing on the highway tax or not?
No, I think we should raise it because we can't
Okay,
keep
so you're
being the
voting in
lowest
favor
tax
of it then.
state. It's just
It would be
insane.
nice if it would be
We're
nice if
so
roads and
backward.
bridges were in the ballot
That's what
proposal.
I think too. I'm
I
against
agree.
this.
Great.
I feel like, well, I can't get where all this is going, but it lends itself once again to the state
Yes.
where everybody passes through on I-70. How about we have a toll road?
Right.
You know, that
Well,
makes
the toll road would
that
be
only
the
makes
best answer.
sense. But no, I mean, the legislature getting a hold of this money and it's somehow going to go through the state patrol. Get serious.
Right.
It ain't gonna see the roads.
It's
it ain't gonna
just
see
got to
the
be.
right.
The ballot language has to be more. I mean, plain spoken.
Exactly.
Easy, yeah.
Even if it just went for the state highway patrol, that's not such a bad cause, and we just don't
Of course it's
understand.
not a bad
in
cause.
Missouri, no, we just have
Then don't
this
call it roads and
attitude.
bridges.
Yeah.
We have this attitude that being the lowest tax, lowest
No,
service
no,
state
no.
is so great.
No, all
But
we're-
when are we going
no,
to
Ray,
raise
tell
Ray,
you
it?
all we're
something.
saying is if you want a
Right.
tax for roads
Right.
and bridges, make it for
Make it
roads
a
and
tax
bridges,
for roads
and we'll
and bridges.
vote for
Right.
it.
And
Don't
we
make
do-
it a blind
every
thing for the
tax-
And
legislature.
we'll
Already
vote,
trying
to, we'll vote to support the highway
Ray,
patrol.
I want to tell you something. You
cigarette tax.
obviously didn't read the op-ed by Joan
no.
Bray,
Right.
who's a tax and spend liberal,
Right.
who loves high taxes. But in today's paper, she said the zoo tax and the highway tax are two
both-
taxes
no.
that she can't even support.
Yeah.
Because they have
Well,
so many
this
problems
zoo
with
tax
them.
she can't support.
She
right.
cannot. She
right.
cannot
well,
support.
I'm with her on that one. And as far
I
as the
thought
highway
you
tax,
supported the highway tax.
I said on the highway tax, I think
Who's
we
on
got to
first?
raise it.
Okay.
I think we got to raise
Let's move
the
on
floor.
to the airport. Speaking of voting, the mayor of St. Louis, Wendy Wiese, at a press conference yesterday. Oh, am I going to Bill? I'm sorry. I'm going to the founder privilege.
And the airport.
I'm going to talk to you, Bill, about Lambert and Lida. The mayor had a press conference yesterday when she said that if they decide to privatize the airport and go down that road, that's one issue that does not need to go in front of the voters of the city of St. Louis. Because after all, she's got a point, doesn't she? The voters have elected representatives in the Board of Aldermen as well as the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. Does everything have to go to a referendum or a ballot measure in front of the hoi polloi?
Well, this should, and a matter of fact, aldermen think it should. Is it Kara Spencer?
Yep.
Who wants to have pass a bill mandating that the voters vote on it? And I think they should. This is a big dramatic thing that Francis Slay dropped on his desk as he was walking out of the office, and now he's a lawyer for one of the groups, and Jeff Rainford is working for him, and the people everybody's head is spinning, going, what is this? And I think that the people who want to privatize the airport should have to make their argument to the voters, and then if the voters think, oh, okay, this sounds like a good idea, do it. But I don't think the voters trust the city officials right now on this, and I don't blame them.
Right, and then who did she know? Well, it has to go through the board of E&A. All right, which is her, which she's going to vote however, Rasputin, Rainford, and them tell her how to vote. Okay, so she's on board. All right, then you've got Lewis Reid, who first thing, rather than say like this is a problem or I ain't with it, oh, I'll vote for it if I get some of my boys on board to get some of this dough. So, you see where he's going. Then you got Darlene Green by herself. So that's 2-1 for Board of E&A in favor. Then you have Marlene Davis, who's an alderman, and her crew are the ones that put together this whatever commission where a bunch of other people are getting paid to tell us what to do and all that. So you've already got aldermen, you've already got Board of E&A. I'm not saying it's the majority of aldermen, but you've already got people who are in line with whatever is going on with this airport. The people need to vote on
But
that.
don't forget, Alvin, all these individuals that you mentioned are elected by the people, and if the people of St. Louis don't like those elected representatives, they can get rid of them at the ballot
Quick
box.
example though, Charlie. We elected these same people, and if the people had not voted against the proposed soccer stadium where St. Louis would have been paying through the nose, St. Louis would be paying through the nose. Now, here we are 2 years later, and thankfully for the Taylor family, they've stepped up, and it's not the way it looks now, going to cost St. Louis a lot. So the people won by ruling out what the
Yeah,
people
this is
elected
this is
said.
historic. I
Right.
mean, this would be historic in my estimation, and the people should definitely
Well, it's what's
vote.
historic because these two are right for the first time tonight. You're absolutely right. The zoo,
You're absolutely right, Bill.
Don't say zoo.
You're absolutely right, Bill.
Viewers can't even see that, right?
It's not about the zoo. No, the airport is by far and away the city's most valuable asset. And the fact that it's located in the county is just the way it is. And the idea, it is a major engine for the zoo, I keep saying this, the major engine for the city and economic development. And Francis Slay was mayor for 16 years. And we had the zoo, if I say zoo one more time, I'm getting there. We had the airport privatization deal in the last 16 minutes of his administration, basically.
That's true.
So it really doesn't pass any smell test. The voters should absolutely have to
Let
approve
me
it.
just challenge
Absolutely.
you. When there are major issues at the federal level, they generally are decided upon by members of the House and the Senate and the President, all elected. They don't have a national referendum on should we go to war, should we buy this.
This is
But
the
they do
New
it in the
England model.
state.
This is a small. The city of St. Louis is not 300 million people or however many we
Right.
have in this
And we're
country.
shrinking.
They can have an election and let the voters
This
determine
is a
this.
major, major
Okay.
thing.
Now, so
Is
let's
an
go on to the
exception.
next one. When was the last time ever, and I mean ever, that a drug was approved at the ballot box? Has this ever happened before? And yet, who's next on this one? It would be you, Bill. Not coincidentally, maybe, as we talk about marijuana. And that would be 3 marijuana measures in front of the voters for medicinal purposes. I mean, did we vote on any other prescription drug? No. Why marijuana for the first time?
Well, I mean, didn't the people have a say in ending prohibition?
Mm-hmm.
But
Not for medicinal purposes.
Well, Charlie.
It should have been.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. On this one, and long overdue, and geez, when I was writing a column 4 times a week, I used to promote recreational marijuana. We should have done it. But at any rate, the only difficulty on this is because there's 3 different proposals to legalize medicinal marijuana, people have to be careful and vote for Amendment 2.
Thank you.
Because we want to, one is for a lawyer in Springfield who will have a big institute to cure all diseases. And
That's Amendment 3.
yeah, and that's a bad idea. And then the other one
Proposition C.
Yeah, goes to the Proposition C, lets the legislature get involved, where Amendment 2, and Mike Wolf wrote an excellent op-ed in the Post-Dispatch on this a couple weeks ago, pointing out that Amendment 2 is the one we should vote for if we want medicinal marijuana, and only 2.
Exactly. Don't vote for it. I mean, it's really,
Right,
for
don't be
those that believe in
confused.
this is real simple. Vote against the other ones and vote for Amendment 2, because the one that gets the most votes is going to matter. And Amendment 2 is reasonable. It creates a 4% tax on it, which goes to veterans, and it's a reasonable tax. It allows doctors to
After
recommend.
oversight
It
and-
allows
right.
doctors to recommend to the patients who need it. It is medicinal. It's modeled after 30, there's 30, you asked about votes. A lot of other states have voted on this. It's modeled after sort of the best practice of 31 other states.
Doesn't it also allow
makes
people to grow
sense.
marijuana in their
It allows
backyard?
them to grow small amounts of marijuana, which
6
is
plants.
reasonable, which is fine.
Really?
Everything about it is good.
You like that, Wendy? You
I
like
think
people growing marijuana in
everything
their
about
backyard?
it is good.
Wendy?
And it is Amendment 2 is the only one that makes sense.
People growing marijuana in their
So what?
backyard in Missouri.
I want cancer patients to have relief. That's what I want.
Thank you, Wendy.
That's what I
Thank
want.
you, Wendy.
Truly.
Well, I'm with Steve Mizrahi here. Don't
When
be
he
confused.
said, "Don't be confused," I thought I was listening to the Beaver Mills next to us
I
guys.
know, I'm with him. I'm good with 2. But you pointed out, Ray, the 30 other places. I said, here's Missouri again. We're voting on medical marijuana where this was done in other states 10, 15, 20 years ago. How about we just skip this and just go on to the
You
legalization
know what,
of
though?
marijuana thing?
There were
right?
opioid statistics. I think the jury is still out about gateway drug, and I always get pummeled anytime I use those 2 words together. But I do think for patients with debilitating diseases, I think they have to have this kind of.
Real quick on the prohibition, it was a health issue because people were getting tired of getting hit by stray bullets for all them gangsters.
And drinking
drinking
bathtub
bathtub
well.
gin.
All
Right.
right.
And
Anyways, let me ask you, Wendy, about some comments that were made also at a press conference yesterday by Mayor Lyda Crewson, and she said that St. Louisans have to stop being so humble. They have to start bragging about what's going on. I guess she's kind of taking a look at the newspapers and radio and television coverage showing that there have been some problems in St. Louis like crime and STD and schools and all that. And she said, look, we've got billions of dollars in development going on between Forest Park and downtown St. Louis, and we're picking up the trash again, and we seem to be making progress in other areas as well. Is she right that St. Louisans are not tooting their own horns as much as they should be and could be?
I think instead of humble or humility, I might have just said, hey, be excited. Yeah, things have been kind of rough lately. Humble, I think St. Louisans, unless we're talking about baseball, I think, most of the time we're pretty humble. And so, be enthusiastic, be excited. And I think we have to start, I've said this a million times, we've got to stop thinking the way we've always thought about progress. Progress isn't going to look the way it looked in the 70s and 80s for those of us who grew up here. It looks different. And so, yeah, I think she's right. Be excited.
I agree, but all right, how are we going to brag on the Central Corridor where we're giving like a tax break to like a condominium thing that overlooks Forest Park, which great real estate that people would just pay for? All right, you just can't brag on the Central Corridor anymore, I think, as the mayor. Now, when you're running for re-election or whatever, you can add up all those millions of dollars that are being spent in development. But that doesn't fly, I think, with the average St. Louis voter because they're still seeing the problems that are dragging the city down.
But I think tax breaks if we could implement a full stop, no more tax breaks, no more corporate tax breaks all at once, I think it would be difficult for the city to walk out on a limb and say, okay, especially not now.
Exactly. There's a small detail that they're giving them every day in Clayton, and they're giving
elsewhere.
them in Chesterfield.
Not so much, right?
But
Clayton.
Clayton, do you not see
the building that
A lot of
overlooks
the new
Forest
development
Park
now
is not in Clayton or Kirkwood.
No, I
anyplace
don't disagree
else.
with you,
But,
Alvin.
you know.
I don't disagree with what you're saying about tax breaks. My point is, I think whether she chose the perfect words or not, the mayor of St. Louis should be delivering a message in general.
Of optimism, yeah.
We can't give up.
I do agree with that.
We've been talking about
Yeah.
it on a number of issues, whether
Well, let me ask you-
transportation, whatever. We know what problems we have, starting with crime, but we can't just give up and wallow about it. And so I give her credit. I mean, what's she supposed to do? Just
Well, how about this? Do you believe that the future of St. Louis travel to Kansas City is in something called the Hyperloop, where we'll get in a pod and we'll be transported to Kansas City in 28 minutes with a possible stop in Columbia, and it's going to cost between $6 and $10 billion. Local business leaders, not per ticket, but the whole system. Do you think that's feasible? Ray Hartmann, you're a businessman.
It would have worked good for me tonight to get out. I'd have been at the end of the show. I'd have been Kansas City. Nobody bothered me for mentioning the zoo too often. I think it's always fun to think of. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But I think it would be, I was a big proponent of the bullet train because I thought that was exciting. I always think we should look toward technological advancements and invest. So sure, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's worth dreaming.
Just the idea, like, boom, you're in Columbia, boom, you're in Kansas City, and those of us old enough to remember the pneumatic tubes at the newspapers and places that we worked at. It's really cool. And yes, I think it will work, and I think it's worth trying to find the investment to do it. For once, just once, can we be first at something?
Well,
first.
Well, my only problem, Alvin, is this idea that we're going to be first with our Hyperloop train. We're either going to be, it's going to be great, or we're going to be laughing stocks again. The hyper what? Well, it was like going to be a pneumatic tube, and we were going to get to Kansas City in, how long is it?
28 minutes.
28 minutes. I'm just afraid. Then again, I would have been laughing at the Wright brothers. I admit that. Right. But this doesn't sound too good to me.
Well, remember, they used to have, and I went up as a kid, and I got a little button. I was like top of the Arts Club the people that, like, that first couple of years it was open, like, people didn't want to go up there. They said, oh my God, you die, whatever, you know, right. It worked, okay? So I'm not comparing the two, but at the same time, I think St. Louis is in a position to set itself apart, not only nationally, but internationally. I think it's a cool thing. Let's go for it.
You think there's a lot of traffic between St. Louis and Kansas City that could be justified by a $10 billion investment?
I think you would make probably $1 billion maybe in the first year or so just for people that would come from all around the world to do this.
Yes, I think that's.
I'm serious.
As long as they're big pods, as they don't have to cut like the legs out for tall people. I'm fine with that because my daughter lives in Kansas City.
And besides, you probably couldn't fit too many people in a pod anyway.
No,
Charlie.
no. I'm
kind
hoping it's an individual pod. I have spatial issues.
I think my fellow founders most likely right on this, that it won't be happening. As I say, if we could dream, I will
Our
say this.
grandchildren,
I will
maybe.
say this. When we were talking about the bullet train, there were some real practical
I like
applications
bullet trains.
between, for example, connecting the Champaign and Columbia campuses. There were a lot of things that really. So sometimes these ideas really do make sense. I suspect we're kind of like thinking Harry Potter or something
No, but
here.
I think
Yeah.
if we build it, then all of a sudden Chicago gets interested in connecting. the
Yeah,
dots.
sure. I'm wondering if that medicinal marijuana isn't already being employed in the area generating these ideas. Okay, why don't we go to the mailbag and see what people had to say about last week's show, or 2 weeks ago. Just looked at my property taxes from 2017, and $129.10 went to the Zoo Museum District, $36.80 to the zoo. I don't know how many tens or even hundreds of millions the zoo gets, but it probably needs an audit more than it needs additional money. That from John Carr of St. Louis County. And we heard from Yana Munzik of St. Louis, who wrote, I enjoy your show. However, why does your background artwork include St. Louis Cardinals and LA Rams? There is no representation of our wonderful St. Louis Blues. Thank you for that. And before you tout spending $175 million on a convention remodel, shouldn't you consider what else can be done with the taxpayers' money? What are we not doing that could benefit from this money? That from Bruce Korbsmeyer of Oakville. You can write us care of 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. We love those emails, letters at ketc.org, and those tweets. Hashtag DonnybrookSTL, which Alvin and Ray are going to read in just a matter of moments. The rest of us will see you next week at this time. Thanks for joining us. Don't go away. Stand by for Your Turn.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Happy Halloween, a little bit early. Although tomorrow night, Halloween party down at the Media Commons here at Channel 9 on Olive. I'm going to be here with my wife and some friends, so come check us out. Ray Hartmann, Ray Hartmann. Oh, you're Clarence Hartman's nephew now. Ray Hartmann and Alvin Reid, it's your turn, and we're going to start with Tony in Bridgeton. Hi, Tony.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'd like to comment on the amendment too. You mentioned that you'll be able to grow your own marijuana, and that's possibly true. But the fact remains that you will have to have a license, and it will be for medical purposes only.
Okay.
You'll have to have a prescription to grow marijuana.
Yeah, no, we
Not
understand.
everybody just gets to grow all the weed they want.
Yeah, we understand.
Tony, I think that's a good point. And one of the things is clear. The popularity of medical marijuana and recreational marijuana in Missouri are two different things. And it should be emphasized, this is about medical marijuana. And I think it actually has a chance to pass this time. And
I think
the support for so many people that have had someone suffering from the symptoms, the side effects of chemotherapy, and so many people know people that really can use this. I think it's an important thing to vote for Amendment 2, personally.
All right.
Let's go to Barbara from South County. What's on your mind, Barbara?
Yes, I am definitely for the roads and bridges, and there is a misconception as far as highway patrol. The money would not go to the operation of the highway patrol, but it would actually go to the troopers that are on the roads for their safety.
Good.
Well, what is their, just explain a little further to me, how would it be for their safety?
Because they are out on the roads and they're going after the criminals and also the other entities.
Well, wait. All right, but I'm going to press on a little bit here. Are you saying the roads and the bridges will be safer, so thus they will be safer?
Yeah. Plus, it also gives them some money because they're in, danger with being on the roads with those, with those type of people.
Okay, so in other words, what we're voting on is not just for roads and bridges, but it is for highway patrolmen.
For the highway patrol, not for the operation of the highway patrol.
I understand what you're saying, but what people were being asked to vote for in the gas tax were for roads and bridges, not necessarily for patrol officers.
That is also in the bill about for the highway patrol.
Let me jump in real quick. I didn't state it as clearly as I should. We cannot, as President Obama once said, make the perfect the enemy of the good. If we wait until we have a tax increase to just bring ourselves up to another part of the bottom nationally. Keep in mind, we're second to the bottom to Alaska in highway taxes. If we constantly wait in Missouri till we have the perfect tax proposition, we'll never get any revenue. We are one of the lowest revenue states in the country. Personally, I think we should have done toll roads when we had tolling authority for Highway 70 because we left millions of dollars from out of state. We're doing it again with this. I'm in favor of it. I don't love our state government and how it spends its money, but we can't keep being the lowest revenue state or one of them in the country. That's why I'm for it. And I'm sure, Alvin, you're right that it's not going to get spent perfectly.
But I got you. You didn't make a good argument on that. And I do agree with your argument. I'm just kind of wary.
Cool. I get
All right,
it.
let's go to Diane in Creve Coeur. Hi, Diane.
Hi, good evening, Alvin and Reid.
How you doing?
Hi, I'm calling about the zoo tax.
Okay.
And the opponent to the plan, his name is Ben, and I'm going to spell the last name, U-C-H-I.
Ushatel.
Ben Usha. He's one of the opponents.
One of the
Ben
opponents.
Ushatel, right?
Anyway, he's a former mayor of Clayton.
Yes.
He's the former chairman of the Zoo and Museum District Board. And he oversees 5 major St. Louis attractions. He says, if approved, there will be no supervision or control of the sales tax funds by the independent Zoo Museum District. All money will go directly to the zoo, and it would have the sole discretion on spending the funds.
That's correct.
All of this work with the district's tax funds paid by us as taxpayers and carefully supervised by the district. He also says he's pressing to do what other zoos are doing, and he thinks that we should charge admission. I kind of agree with it.
Okay.
Well, I agree. And Ben was the chairman.
And I disagree.
I brought that idea to the ZMD when Ben was there. And just to keep this perspective, in 1970, when the ZMD was established, or 72, virtually no zoo in the country charged much admission. Today, we are leaving a major source of tourism revenue at the gates of the zoo. Keep in mind, people like myself, and I know Ben, believe the zoo should remain free for people in the city and the county. No one's arguing that. No one's arguing that. The question is, if you go to almost any other zoo in the country, a family of 4 is going to spend $80 to $100 to get in without complaint. And when you add up the amount of people who come here from out of state and the rest of Missouri and really outside of the city and county, we have so much money that we're leaving from out-of-towners. And if we weren't doing that, we wouldn't need a regressive sales tax.
All right. Well, in 1970, I got news for you. St. Louis Zoo was one of the few places that my family could go without people looking at us crazy. And that's because the zoo was free and nobody could keep us out of it. So
all the other zoos were free.
Okay?
All the other zoos were free.
I wasn't at the other zoos. I was at the zoo in St. Louis. Thank you, Diane.
Let's go to Ron from St. Louis. Hi, Ron.
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
If the city wants to outsource something, let's outsource the refuse department, the board of aldermen, and the streets department. But let's keep our airport. It's one of the few things that's working as well as it can work to make more money for the city. But let's get rid of the refuse department and all of these places that don't work.
All right.
Ron, I think it's a great point.
Including the board of aldermen. We've been trying to get rid of them, and we just can't.
You want to outsource the board of aldermen?
Actually, Ron, steps have been taken, and it's what, 3 years from now or 4 years from now?
Well, it's going to be smaller.
It's going to be small.
It's not going to be outsourced.
Right. But instead of from 28, we're going to go down to 14. So you got to start somewhere.
Ron, I think you got a great point.
I agree.
I wouldn't go as far as to outsource the police department, but there are communities that outsource refuse. I don't know the issues there, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
We clean the alley. We clean the alley. We clean the sidewalks. But that 36 inches in the street where they can write tickets, they don't want us to clean that. Okay. Why can't we just clean that and get rid of the street?
That's a good
ticket writer.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. That what do you call that? Oh my gosh, that part of your yard, the street that you don't own. Easement. Right. Yeah. Where you,
all right.
Exactly. Good point.
Thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Got some tweets. Novice Christian, I am all for Prop Z. The zoo is great for St. Louis and adding another positive space that all citizens of our city can partake in.
All right, thank you for that one. From JDR 1949, 3 marijuana amendments are one toke over the line. That's a good one.
Very nice. Sister Sarah, 23, I happily brag about St. Louis. We have a great city with many amazing free activities, from hiking and great parks to great sports teams with great fans. Hashtag Donnybrook STL. Send us a tweet.
Good for, well, we got another one.
I'm sorry. I thought we just had 3.
Good for Sister Sarah. And let's go to Holy Star 77. After tuning in tonight, I see the future for St. Louis is open to a hybrid zoo airport with medical marijuana on hand if you get sick from Hyperloop travel. That's a good one. Sounds like a Yale Hollander. No, that's a good one, and we appreciate all the tweets. Keep them coming to Donnybrook, hashtag Donnybrook STL. And let's go to an old friend, Bill from Rock Hill. Hi, Bill.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
First of all, with regards to the highway tax, it's like, how long is it going to take before people finally realize that transportation infrastructure costs money and you've got to be willing to ante up? I mean, already there are a lot of bridges that are in just absolutely deplorable shape, and it's like, how long is it going to be before somebody's bridge falls down? And I'm afraid that's what it's going to finally take, because they've had things like that happen elsewhere, that finally a bridge is going to collapse, and then everybody's just going to point fingers and try to blame it on everybody else. And with regards to the Hyperloop, as far as I'm concerned, the Hyperloop is a bunch of hype. If you need to get from here to Kansas City in a hurry, there's something called the airplane. It's been around since 1909. It's a tested technology, generally works quite well. Several flights a day between Lambert Field and St. Joe International, which, if you don't know this, the Kansas City airport's actually closer to St. Joe than it is to Kansas City. But, the Hyperloop, I've got a railroad book in my basement that was published like in 1967 or 68. The Hyperloop is not a new idea. There is something in there on the last page of the book called the tube train. It was this big, now this is what was different. It was going to be constructed above ground, and it was going to have like a giant fan behind it that was going to blow it through the tube, but it was basically the same idea. So the idea is at least 50 years old, and nobody took any action on it back then. They've generally found that a lot of these new technologies, they can do with the existing technology what these new ones can do, and if that's the case, why bother with it?
Okay, Bill, so you are for the highway tax, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm opposed to the Hyperloop because I think it's just a bunch of hype.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Gene, Central West End. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for taking my call this evening. I was listening about the Hyperloop. I think it would be a great idea. I would love to go from St. Louis to Kansas City in 28 to 30 minutes.
Right.
Also, too, I wish that if we were going to be voting for the highway to redo our bridges and everything, I wish that it was some kind of way that they didn't add other stuff into it. But it looks like we don't have a choice for that.
Yeah. Well, Gene,
so thank you for taking my call.
Oh, good call, because you with Ray on that one. And I'm kind of like devil's advocate on that. I got a problem with where's the money going to end up, but I do agree with both of you. We need to raise the gas.
And if we don't, we're never. I mean, we just. And you're actually right on. Of course, they're not going to spend the money. Well, state government never does. But the fact is, we can't keep having so little of it. Most state governments don't spend money on the Hyperloop. I have to say, maybe this is personal, but it just feels kind of like something out of Harry Potter, you know. And my daughter's got me into Harry Potter, and I don't want to be a Muggle. So I like the idea of the Hyperloop, and I really don't think in our lifetime we'll be riding the Hyperloop to Kansas City.
Okay.
But we'll see, and we appreciate the call. Let's go to Wayne from Des Peres. Hey, Wayne.
Yes, ready?
Yes.
All right, I have lived in the St. Louis County area for more than 70 years.
Right.
And I was very disappointed in the previous legislature. The Democrats didn't seem to know what the hell was going on other than to spend money. And now we've got the Republicans. Hopefully, I thought they were going to be better. And they're as bad as or worse. I mean, it's time for them to listen to the citizenry of the state of Missouri. We need a gasoline tax that pays for better roads and bridges. We need a zoo where the people outside of the St. Louis area pays for it. We are paying plenty for the zoo. Somebody else should be paying for us, or at least helping us pay for the zoo. And last but not least, if you go down to Texas, you will see progress like you cannot possibly believe. We just returned from there, and it is unbelievable what they're doing on their roads, their buildings, their restaurants. The development is mind-boggling. It's time for us to get with it and get into the 21st century, because we do our best to be the worst.
All right.
And it's time for us to be at least halfway up to the ladder.
I agree with you, Wayne, and our tourism strategy is as relevant today as your rotary wall phone.
All right, but Wayne, if you're still there, maybe not. All right, what you got, Wayne, is your personal property tax in Texas is about 3 times higher, and you've also got the oil money. Our taxes aren't that high on property, and we obviously don't have the petroleum, the oil, the gas, the natural gas. So I'm not arguing with you, but there's a lot going on in Texas that's not going on in Missouri. That's apple and oranges.
Let's go to Mike from Leslie. Hello, Mike.
Evening, guys. It's an honor to once again talk to you guys and everybody else on the listening on the TV.
Always a pleasure.
First off, this Amendment 3, I believe, is the number, the marijuana amendment that you shouldn't vote for.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about Brad Bradshaw.
Yeah,
guy from Spring. He's going to be.
Turns out he's going to be in charge of the money.
He wanted to be
deciding on how it's spent.
Right.
And then the other thing, may I continue? The other thing I want to talk about, most important thing to do, vote. This coming Tuesday after next, most important vote of your life. Vote.
A good point. I guess we should stress that every week, too. Regardless of how you feel about things, vote. Right.
Well,
that's all I can say.
Thank you, Mike,
Right.
and a great point. And Mr. Bradshaw seems to want to be the pot czar of the state of Missouri. And it's a sideshow. Amendment 2 is very clear and very reasonable and very measured and very fair, and it is about medicinal marijuana. You don't have to be a radical to support it. It really is the only one that should be on the ballot, and having the confusion isn't helping. Mike, thanks for that great commercial. Appreciate it.
All right. Pat in Kirkwood's neighbor, Warson Woods. How you doing, Pat?
I'm great. I want to tell you that I flew to Columbus, Ohio on Southwest Airlines this week, and they have an 18-page center spread touting St. Louis, and it was written by a gentleman, Miles Howard, from, of all places, Boston. And he loves St. Louis. He can't wait to come back. And everyone should read this because it makes you proud to live here.
Okay.
Instead of all of the negativity.
All right. We appreciate that.
Southwest has emerged as our one airline.
That's our hub.
We may not officially be a hub, but at least there are a reasonable number of cities you can actually get to directly through Southwest Airlines. And that's a very nice call. We appreciate hearing from Pat. Who's next? Lynn from Chesterfield. Hi, Lynn. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, excuse me, it's about the zoo raising some revenue through a sales tax. Sales taxes are so regressive. I don't see how in the world we can consider that to be a possibility. A small admission tax for people outside of the city or the county would be a great solution. But a sales tax where already there are places 8, 9, 10% sales tax, we're going to add more to that. So regressive. I can't believe we're even considering that. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. It is regressive. And the other thing, it's anti-competitive because St. Charles County, which is as much a part of St. Louis as St. Louis is a competitor economically to St. Louis County. And when you raise the sales tax in St. Louis County it sends more jobs and business to St. Charles County, which isn't an evil thing, but if you're St. Louis County, it's not a very smart thing. And it's already too high. So I think that's a great point, and there's no question about how regressive it is.
All right, let's go to Charlotte, Nokeville. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, I just want to say we can't seem to get a trolley built to go a couple miles in St. Louis. How in the world will we ever get a tube or anything else to go to Kansas City in a speedy time? Okay?
All right, I hear you, but we managed to put a man on the moon several times. I think we could build a Hyperloop if we put our minds to do it. It's like anything else in America. When we put our minds to actually doing something, we do it and we do it well. We just need to decide what we're going to do. So I have no doubt it can be done. Yeah. Whether it gets done, that's the debate.
Fair enough. Let's go to Eric from Washington. Hey, Eric, what's on your mind?
Hi. I'm just trying to understand why the gas tax is always so many cents per gallon. Sales tax is a percentage. Your property tax is a percentage. Why not put the gas tax or the diesel fuel tax, whatever it is, as a percentage of the price of the fuel? When the price of gas or diesel goes up, the percentage of taxes goes up, and because the roads are going to cost more to build. When the price of gas goes down, the price of diesel goes down, the cost to build, maintain those roads should, in theory, go down. It should just be a percentage as opposed to a flat cents per gallon. It doesn't make it. Let the oil companies and the gas station owners drive this forward because they want to get the price as high as they can, and at some point it'll even itself out.
Well, isn't it the same though? I mean, if you go in a store and you buy something for $1, the sales tax is the same as if you bought something for $1,000. Correct?
That piece of that candy bar you buy isn't going to be $1 today and $1.55 next week.
Right. You raised an interesting question.
I see.
I'm guessing, is it got to do with the way the pumps are programmed? I mean, I don't know, because you're right. In other words, in St. Louis, the tax might be 9.113% or whatever it is in a municipality, or a little more or less. If it is,
it's the same.
But it's a percentage. I don't know. All I know is I'm pretty sure universally, there's a There's all 50 states have it. You raised an interesting point. I just don't know the reason for it.
But thank you, because you educated me. I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying.
Yeah, but just because it's been done that way, carts didn't have wheels till somebody thought of it.
I guess so.
You adjust.
You're a pioneer.
All of your sales tax, a restaurant pays a percentage.
No, we get it. We get it.
Yeah. No, I get it. I do. I get what you're saying. I do.
By the way, you're in Washington, Eric. Is that right? Washington, Missouri?
Yes.
I have to tell you, I was in Washington. I sent a cross-country run, and I picked up a copy of the Washington Missourian. And I'm going to tell you,
newspaper.
the Washington Missourian is a wonderful institution. The Miller family. I got to put in a plug because it was so much fun to read the Weekend Washington Missourian because it was like going back in time in a really good way. And what a wonderful newspaper that still works. I just love it. Sorry to patronize you.
No.
It really is a great newspaper.
From the years that I worked at the St. Louis American, met them, were around them at Missouri Press Association events. What a wonderful family. What a wonderful newspaper.
The Miller family.
The
Miller family is very, they're pillars in the community.
I wish everybody else could have a newspaper that worked that well. It didn't work in very many places, but it sure seems to.
And it's a gem. It truly is a gem.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Lou in South County. Hi, Lou.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Just fine.
I just want to point out that the same people who bought the Admiral for $1 million after John Connolly bought it for $600,000 and stripped the engines out, the same people who cut the lease for the Rams, the same people who insisted on no turnstile fee to get into Metrolink are the same people who want the zoo tax.
I'd have to connect.
That says it all right there.
I've got to connect the dots on that, though, because I don't know that that's necessarily true. But I get your point. Thanks, man.
It's an interesting. I don't think it's quite the same people, but it's the same principle of how we sometimes approach issues here. Let's go to Sharon in Lake St. Louis. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for calling.
Hi. I'm in favor of the loop because I have a friend, that man that said you could fly from St. Louis to Kansas City. You can't directly fly from St. Louis to Kansas City. If you try to get a flight from Kansas City to St. Louis, it's going to take you to Atlanta or Nashville.
Doesn't Southwest have direct service?
I think they do. But I'm
That's fine.
No,
they don't?
No.
Gosh. All right. Maybe you may be right.
I had a friend just try last week to come to St. Louis from Kansas City, and she couldn't.
Okay.
By the time you get from KCI to Kansas City, if you're going most places in Kansas City, you're better off driving.
Wait a minute. From the time you get to my house to the airport in St. Louis, I could be in Kansas City on the Hyperloop. Right.
I mean, really, driving at this point flying to Kansas City is a really dubious option. I think there is Amtrak goes. I think.
Oh yeah, I've caught it many times.
That might work. I think that's a great drive.
All right.
Driving would seem to be the more sensible option, particularly given our low gas tax.
Donna in Afton. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Hi there, guys. I just want to talk about the Hyperloop. Far more St. Louisans go to Chicago for baseball games and shopping, and far more Chicagoans come here for the Cardinal games and the Arch, etc.
Right.
I think a lot more people would ride a Hyperloop going to Chicago and St. Louis than would ever go to Kansas City. It sounds like another bottomless, stupid money pit where nobody really thinks about where the most people would go. So who knows if we ever get it. But let's go where the people are going to go and use it a lot, you know?
I agree.
Are we really I have to admit, when I heard it, I thought it was a joke. I like to be for progress. We're not going to have a Hyperloop, are we?
I mean, if somebody decides, yes, I'm all in on the Hyperloop, and I have a whole bunch of money, right? But I don't know how it's going to happen.
I mean, it'd be fun.
But by the way, I think the reason the St. Louis Kansas City thing, shortest distance between two places is a straight line, and believe it or not, you could get from here to Kansas City without actually crossing a river. That's hard to believe, but that is true. The Mississippi River comes into play trying to get here to Chicago.
Carla from Ferguson, you may be our last caller. What's on your mind, Carla?
Hey, so I know a lot of people who come to this area from other states, and they always mention what great roads we have. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't problems, but in general, we have pretty good roads. So with that being said, we need, and a gas tax is a burden, and our government offices need to learn how to work within their budgets. And instead of building and continuing to, pave over Mother Earth, let's stop expanding highways so that we can create more urban sprawl, take care of the highways we have, and stop taxing us to death for everything.
Okay.
Okay, Carla.
All right. Thank you very much.
We appreciate
Carla, I don't know what road you on, but we ain't driving on the same roads. But thank you.
Really. Thank you for watching Donnybrook. Donnybrook, your turn. Happy Halloween. We'll see you next Thursday night.